Hey everyone, it's Blake. Welcome in to episode number 35 of our WWE 2021 Save in TEW 2020. This is Raw for week 1 in September. The fallout from SummerSlam begins, and as you will see as we move along here, some of our booking is going to change a little bit after SummerSlam. I kind of talked about it previously, and sort of phase 1 was the start of the Save to SummerSlam. Now we sort of jump into phase 2 as we start the road to the big show, which is going to be Survivor Series. But I think you'll see our booking style changes a little bit in terms of our weekly TV and such moving forward. That was kind of in the works from the very beginning. We kind of used these first 3 months in the build to SummerSlam sort of as building up storylines, different stars and such and all that. But now we're going to kick things up a notch again, which we kind of did a couple weeks before SummerSlam. But you'll start to see there's a lot more, I think, interesting dynamics in play on our weekly TV shows. Take that for what you will right now, but you'll kind of see it play out, I think, here moving forward. So that is worth noting. Also, just as a note, I usually release these early in the mornings. I guess if you're in the U.S., they're usually released around 9 Eastern or so, but they'll probably start being released a little bit more in the middle of the day. So just as a programming note, that's just a little bit easier on my schedule. So that way you guys know that moving forward. But let's jump in to Raw, and we start with the pre-show. Mandy Rose defeating Carmella. No moves needed, apparently, just with a pinfall. We don't even get any specifics on the actual moves. 35 overall. Carmella off her game. Not much to note here. You'll start to see some different people, shuffling in here when it comes to, a Mandy Rose who hasn't been used a whole lot. You'll start to see that a bit more here as we, are starting a new pay-per-view cycle. And for Raw, our next pay-per-view is very soon with Unforgiven. So that's at the end of September. So we got a lot to get to on Raw because we have a lot to fit in leading up to our pay-per-view, which will be in, 3 weeks or so. And then it is MVP getting the win over Rick Boogs in also pre-show action. 43 overall, not much to note here. I think this is actually Rick Boogs' first match we've had in the series. I could be wrong on that, but yeah, I don't think that he's really done a whole lot. So MVP gets the win. He hasn't really done much from a singles action standpoint. He's been placed with Bobby Lashley, but as you'll see, that will change based on something that we discussed in our State of WWE episode with Bobby Lashley and all of that. So let's jump into the main show, which, as you know by now, always starts with an angle, for the most part. But it is going to be a significant angle based on the rest of this show. And it is Corey Graves with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Graves immediately catches up with Austin, and Graves wants to know, what does Stone Cold Steve Austin think about the situation with the WWE Championship at SummerSlam, with Edge seemingly aligning himself with Randy Orton, and Edge cashing in the Money in the Bank contract that he won earlier in the night to defeat Daniel Bryan and become the WWE Champion all in one evening. Austin says that they have not arrived yet, but when they do, he's got something for them. Fine segment here, 73 overall. We put Graves with Austin here. We could have put it by himself, would have got a better rating, but from a presentation standpoint, we basically wanted it to be the, the trope of, announcer, interview or whatever, tracks down, the big main figure to start the show because of the fallout that we had from that big segment, with Edge winning the championship and all that at SummerSlam. So it's fine. Graves underperforms, but he's with Stone Cold. Come on. So that kind of sets the table for something that we'll see a bit later on this episode. And we do have some big things going on this episode. So it's not just based on this. We've got another big development we're going to have here in a few segments. We start the show off with the Dirty Dogs, Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode, getting the win over Akira Tozawa and Drew Gulak. 54 overall, not a great match, but the Dirty Dogs need a little momentum here. And that we just could not find a lot of momentum for them before SummerSlam. They were kind of used as a team to help us build up some other teams on Raw, like the Street Profits, and they were used in singles matches. They had those U.S. title open challenge matches against Kevin Owens and such. They were just kind of slotted into that role where we just did not really have any big storyline plans for them. So they had to kind of fit into that for then, but we do have some things in the work for them now. And I know it's going to be one of those where we've torn them down a little bit. Now we have to build them back up, but they were just sort of victims, I think, of the booking in terms of there just wasn't a whole lot to do with them leading into SummerSlam. Now things will change a little bit on this front, and you'll see what I mean here in the coming weeks on Raw. But they get a win here, a much-needed win for these two, as they do beat Tozawa and Gulak. And then it is Stone Cold Steve Austin on the phone, 86 overall here, so good stuff here from Austin. He's on the phone with Cesaro, and Austin notes that no one from the Money in the Bank ladder match from Raw, from SummerSlam, is at the show tonight. He's not expecting anyone. They're all at home, and except for Edge, of course. But he's saying that everyone's sort of recuperating from this grueling Money in the Bank match at SummerSlam. Cesaro, one of those people, but Austin told them all, take the night off, rest. He's going to try to gain order. That's what he wants on Raw. He doesn't want everyone there. Chaos, all the backlash from what happened with Edge. But he's on the phone with Cesaro, and he tells Cesaro he knows that he's angry because as we saw in the SummerSlam Money in the Bank match, that it was Mustafa Ali who interfered again, so we continued our pay-per-view sort of theme there with those two. Cesaro wants, he wants his payback, and he's tired of this whole thing. Austin tells him to calm down and to watch SmackDown on Friday. So, we'll see what that means. But Austin, a little bit of tease there, but it also does set the table with Austin noting that no one else from the Money in the Bank match going to be at Raw tonight, except for Edge. He expects Edge to be there. No one else will be. And we'll talk a little bit about that decision after the show. But it was done intentionally, but we'll get to that a bit later. And then we get a promo with Kevin Owens, who says that he will be restarting the U.S. title Open Challenge next week. He notes that the match with Goldberg at SummerSlam, although not a long match, as we remember, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, something like that. He notes that, hey, it was a big match to prepare for, took a lot out of him mentally. He's going to regroup tonight. But next week, he's always said he's going to be a fighting champion. And next week, the U.S. title Open Challenge returns with Kevin Owens. So gets a little much-needed night off here, and he will now regroup and return next week for another match and another defense of his U.S. championship. And we get to another match here, as it is Io Shirai getting the win over Liv Morgan. 932 overall, 54 for this match. I don't think our matches are going to do very well on the show. I will note that, but it goes back to what I just said a second ago, as we are holding off the Raw Money in the Bank participants, which a lot of good talent in there. So that's going to take away the possibility for some of our good matches. But we're doing that from a storyline standpoint, and really once we get past this edition of Raw, things will start to change quite a bit in terms of the matches I think you'll see on a weekly basis on Raw. So it is Io Shirai getting a win here over Liv Morgan. Two, very talented ladies on the roster here, and just a nice singles match. A little, for Io Shirai, she lost the opportunity in that triple threat match at SummerSlam, didn't win the Raw Women's title, but she gets the win here. However, it seems like she's got some new problems to deal with, as we're going to see shortly. And that is because, in another 54 segment, it is Shayna Baszler and Sonya Deville, the new WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. They hit the ring and they take out Io Shirai and Liv Morgan. So the new champions who get to, as we know, go from brand to brand. They've been on SmackDown and they are wasting no time making their presence felt on Raw, as now they have the luxury of going wherever they want to go, and immediately they come out and attack two of our top women's baby faces on Raw. So that is a development, and we'll see what that leads to. But the new champs, not wasting any time, a dominant force, clearly, in WWE in the women's division with Baszler and Deville. And then a big-time segment coming up here, as it is Bayley celebrating her Raw Women's Championship win, and she comes out talking about, how she is the one that said she was going to win the championship, and she did. She came out, won the title, and of course Sasha Banks also with her, and there's clearly the tension there, which we built up a couple, I guess on the Raw specifically before SummerSlam, and then we saw at SummerSlam it was Bayley pinning Sasha to add another layer to that, and then now there is a tension there, and we can kind of see that with this segment here. And then Sasha steps up after Bayley has done all of her ranting and raving and all of this stuff about how she is the rightful owner of the Raw Women's Championship. Sasha steps up and offers a friendly challenge, and just as Bayley is sitting there contemplating whether Sasha should be the first one to get a shot at the Raw Women's Championship, it is the return of Becky Lynch, who makes her way down to the ring. 83 segment, good stuff here. And she says that the person who the Raw Women's title rightfully belongs to is her, because she never lost the title when she left, and now she is back to regain the championship. So a huge development here on the Raw side of things in the women's division, as it is Becky Lynch who has returned, and I kind of, hinted at that in a previous installment here of the show, as it was on the State of WWE episode, where we talked about, Becky had been away and, she was on maternity leave and all that. I kind of said it as though she was still away. Well, she was up until this edition of Raw. So she's back and she's ready, and we are putting her in a pretty good spot here right away. And when you just see it here, Becky Lynch, Bayley, Sasha Banks, our Raw Women's Division now, which was cursed from the beginning of this, saved, as we know, with the Rhea Ripley injury. We had Nikki Cross go out on maternity leave. I think something else happened. I don't even remember. But we have now really sort of bolstered the Raw Women's Division, as we now have Becky, Bayley, Sasha, Io Shirai, Liv Morgan we're doing stuff with. Now we have the luxury of bringing over Shayna Baszler, Sonya Deville as the tag champs. So, luckily, after a dreadful start, the Raw Women's Division seemingly is back now, and Becky is back, and now we got a lot of good stuff in the works here, I think, moving forward, and there's a lot of possibilities here on Raw. So good stuff here, good segments. And then we get a match between AJ Styles and Mansoor. Again, I would not have, put Mansoor in the spot, nothing against him, but he's not very over, and we just had to need some people to wrestle on this show, because we are, kind of put our own limitations on ourselves with this, leaving the Money in the Bank participants off the show. But we need to do that for a reason from a storyline standpoint. So there is a reason why, and you'll find out not just in this episode, but in the next episode as well. But so we'll take a lower score here, 60 overall. Styles gets the win. The most important part of this is that after the match, AJ Styles says that he is now gone from, losing his match at Big E. He lost his chance at the King of the Ring, all this stuff. He is now gone from mad to angry. And Styles said that people are about to see something that they haven't seen in a long time from him. And he doesn't exactly say what that is, but he says they will find out very soon that there is no messing with AJ Styles anymore. And for everyone who wants to keep saying that he doesn't still have it, even though he's lost these matches recently, it's time for him to get refocused, and that they are about to see something they haven't seen in a long time from him. So AJ Styles with a very interesting promo here. Clearly, more kind of focused in terms of a more serious tone, I think is probably a good way to put it, from AJ Styles. So he is on a mission here to do something. We just don't know exactly what that is yet. But a good promo here, 79 overall. And then we go straight from that to a promo from Goldberg. And I'm not sure why it's talking about hyping the upcoming match with Owens, but we probably just, picked the wrong one here, whatever. But basically it's Goldberg talking about the match he had with Kevin Owens at SummerSlam. And Goldberg says, look, he's very disappointed in himself, and he's obviously, been in and out of retirement. He thinks that now is finally the time for him to walk away. He embarrassed himself at SummerSlam, which I kind of laughed because I guess he sort of did. The match was terrible. But we can lean into that because Goldberg just says, hey, I just don't have it anymore. I don't think there's anything left for me to do. And if he couldn't do what it took to beat Kevin Owens for the U.S. title, it may just be time for him to walk away for good, finally, and he just doesn't think he has anything left. So a very dejected Goldberg here, and we will see what that leads to, but that's kind of the focus for Goldberg here. Not sure what he has left, and maybe after these going in and out of retirement, coming back for matches, all this, there may be no more coming back for him. He may be done, and we'll see what happens with that. And another match, 55 overall, not great. But just another kind of thrown together match here is that it's John Morrison getting the win over Angelo Dawkins, which we saw. Angelo Dawkins got the win in singles action over Dolph Ziggler in a recent match. But we put him in together here with Morrison, and originally we actually had this match going longer, but I had to go back and insert a couple other segments along the way, and so we had to take some of the time off of this. So I think it probably would have been a little bit better, actually, if we had added more time. Even though these two, from an overness standpoint, I mean, they're not great, but I still think it's something where, like, if we look at the dirt sheet and, penalized and all this, so Morrison has low morale. That doesn't help. We know it doesn't have an associated storyline, so we could have got a bump, I guess, rating standpoint on that. But I think this is an interesting match, and as you'll see, it's going to lead to an interesting sort of dynamic we're going to have moving forward that's going to involve both of these two. But Morrison, someone that I said before, I kind of wish I would have put him in the Money in the Bank match instead of Ricochet, which, as we know, everyone hates Ricochet. But it's fine, and I think we have some use for him, and we're going to have some use for him moving forward. But I think for now, we have some stuff we can do with both of these guys, and clearly Dawkins is still going to be aligned with Montez Ford, but we held Ford out here because he was part of that Money in the Bank match, so we didn't bring him on this show as part of that storyline. So, decent little match here, and again, more things to come for these two. So, even though a lot of these matches are kind of, they're different than what we have when we have more of our roster, I kind of like seeing what we get out of some of these. So, I'm fine with this. Morrison gets the win, though. A much-needed win for him. And then a promo with Rey Mysterio, who is not at the building because, again, he was part of that of the Raw Money in the Bank match at SummerSlam. But it is Rey Mysterio in a video interview saying, Rey is not happy. Rey says that all he wants to say is that he is coming for Edge. Everything, the friendship, all of this with Edge, he's now questioned everything, and that he is coming for Edge. Of course, we talked about the finish to the Raw Money in the Bank match at SummerSlam, which was Edge pushing Mysterio off the ladder to get the win. Rey, Rey is like fuming. He is ready for Edge, and that he says he is coming for Edge. Like, that's it. That's all we need to know. So, 79 overall. Good promo here from Rey. And, of course, Rey still has that hot new catchphrase. I guess coming for Edge, perhaps, is the new catchphrase that Rey is using. But he is coming for Edge, in case you hadn't noticed that already. But we'll see what that means here in the coming weeks. And then, a great promo here, 82 overall, as it is Big E, Kofi Kingston, and Xavier Woods, all excited, celebrating. The New Day is back together again, because Big E won his match against AJ Styles at SummerSlam. The New Day are the new WWE Tag Team Champions, so now they have the opportunity to go from SmackDown to Raw. And so they are all happy and excited, and they should be, and they're going to be even more excited after they win the main event, which gets 61 overall. Not great. It's going to hurt our show ranking, but that's okay. We're willing to throw it aside for this one night on Raw, as it is Big E and the New Day defeating Angel Garza, Chad Gable, and Shelton Benjamin in 10-19. We see here some of the performance and everything. Chad Gable still getting better at his gimmick. Good thing it's not Shorty G. Angel Garza off his game, so that didn't help the match quality here, but all good. Another sort of random pairing here, but we're starting to, kind of spin some stuff. We got some things spinning, and that's all that matters. We have the New Day back together again here on Raw, and so that was kind of the focus on this. But, a 61 overall for our what's going to be our main event match. Obviously, we don't love it, but I'm okay with that on this particular episode because we're more worried about building the bigger storyline that involves, having to use some of these people on the card that, quite frankly, a lot of times we don't use. We use some of these guys on the pre-show action, but Angel Garza will have more to do with, he'll be more factored in, but I'm still trying to figure out what we need to do with Gable and Benjamin here. But the New Day, back together again. They are, all the momentum on the New Day side coming out of SummerSlam. And now, to the big one, which is Edge and Rey Mysterio have arrived. And, again, hyping upcoming match with Bryan and Lashley. That is not actually accurate. It's just we did the promo where they're hyping, two people in particular. And so this is now Edge and Randy Orton explaining their actions they are trying to show that, hey, they fooled everyone from the very beginning. Edge talks about how he laid it out in front of everyone's faces. He kept telling everyone that he was the ultimate opportunist. He would do whatever it takes to win the WWE Championship, and that it was time for him to change his ways, which, as we know, feeds into his interest music. And he decided that people have always said that, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. But what he's realized is that even though Randy Orton has been both for him along the way, Randy Orton has been the person that has helped him achieve the most success in WWE, and they finally both realized that together they are much stronger than they are apart. And so the rated RKO era has returned as Edge and Randy Orton are back together again, and Edge calls everyone fools and all this stuff about how they were trying to figure out this big mystery about who was being attacked backstage, who was doing all this. Everyone blamed Orton, but Edge said it was so easy because while everyone was looking at Randy Orton, he had the opportunity to pick apart all of his opponents one by one by one, which started, with all these different people that were attacked backstage. It went into the tag team match where he decided to destroy Sheamus and Bobby Lashley with the chair afterwards. He attacked Ricochet, Montez Ford, all these guys, Cesaro. They had already beaten up Rey Mysterio. So Edge decided that he was going to take advantage of all of that and put all the odds in his favor at SummerSlam. And that's exactly what he did, because he was the person that attacked of all these guys, and that he was the fresh man, and that allowed him to win the Money in the Bank contract. And then his best friend, Randy Orton, helped him win the WWE Championship. So Edge, with quite a promo here, is the big promo we've been building towards, trying to explain everything, connect all the dots, and Edge says they were always there from the very start. So, after all that, we then get Stone Cold Steve Austin is tired of listening to Edge talk, and a great segment here, 86 overall. Austin comes out and says that, even though Edge is very poor when trying to improvise dialogue, I'm not buying that at all. He tells Edge that congratulations for fooling everyone and thinking that they are now above everyone in WWE, but Edge is going to have a chance to prove it next week, because next week on Raw, in the main event, it will be Edge defending the WWE Championship in a triple threat match against Daniel Bryan and Bobby Lashley. So, the former champions are clearly invoking their rematch clause here, and they're both going to get a shot at the new champion, Edge. So, a big main event next week on Raw. Edge, Daniel Bryan, Bobby Lashley for the WWE Championship. A huge main event. Easily our biggest main event we've had thus far on our weekly TV. It will take place next week, but we're not done for this one because there's more to get to. As it is, Daniel Bryan hitting the ring with full force and just completely hauling off on Edge and Randy Orton, sending both of them to the outside, scurrying away. 87 overall. Good stuff to end our show. Our best segment of the night. And now we have set things up for a very mad Daniel Bryan getting another shot at Edge next week in a triple threat match. Edge, Daniel Bryan, Bobby Lashley for the WWE Championship, our main event for next week's Raw. So there was this edition of Raw, which, as we'll look here, did get us to 73. I was fully expecting that. Again, we had to implement the limitations for a reason. You'll understand those more next week on this next episode of Raw. But as I've always said before, I'm okay with taking a little bit of a step back to take a step forward on some of these shows. And I just knew that the matches we put together were not very good on this show, but they had to sort of be that way. This was a much more angle-focused show. But as I said earlier, you will see a little bit of a difference moving forward, and it will really all start on next week's edition of Raw. So 73 overall, fine show. I'm okay with us losing a little popularity. Good luck trying to stop us after next week. I'm kidding, but I really think our shows are gonna really start to pick up next week. So there is Raw for week 1 in September. Let's see what we need to get to before we wrap up. And my goodness, we have got a possible huge development here. As you can see right off the top, Kota Ibushi is now available. His contract ending with New Japan. And if we want, we can try to make an offer to Kota Ibushi. So, I want you guys to weigh in. Do you think we should sign Kota Ibushi to a contract and bring him to WWE? But as for Raw, great show. We didn't strike gold on this one, but that's okay. If we look at our mail, Marina Shafir, okay, so her developmental contract's ending. We'll address that. Kota Ibushi, he's available. Tell me what you think. Should we bring in Kota Ibushi? I think this is, again, as a New Japan fan, it may be hard for me, guys, I'm telling you, not to make an offer and see if we can get Ibushi. I don't know that he's going to take it, but I would be very intrigued if we could get Kota Ibushi in WWE. Drug test fees there. Our Raw viewing figures, 3.37. I don't think that's very good, but that's all right. Raw comes out of retirement. You already knew that. All right, so we got these two things we need to get to. We have a couple contract things in here. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you who it is. Elias and Damian Priest, we have secured them. I'm not going to go into this because there is another one out there that I don't necessarily want to spoil just yet. But that is the big question as we end this episode. Should we sign Kota Ibushi? Should we at least try to attempt to sign Kota Ibushi? Because, this guy can wrestle. And if we can bring him in, I think we could possibly find some things for him to do and be a very cool addition to our roster. But we will see what happens on that. And we will also discuss more about a new save, which I discussed at the end of episode, the State of WWE episode. You guys, I left you a nice little poll there. And it seems like a lot of you are voting for the historical save for some form or fashion. I'm really liking sort of the late 90s period there, whether that's 97, 98, somewhere in there. Maybe WWF, maybe WCW, don't know. But that's kind of what I'm leaning towards right now. I will just tell you up front because we have had several people vote that. There are also some other great options. Like there was a TNA save, which I've always been intrigued by. Doing a local to global type thing, that would also be fun. There's a lot of other possibilities. So we'll continue to think on that, but I will tell you I'm going to make a decision pretty quick on that and probably start that save here in the next couple weeks or so. Keep sending in, though. If you have more opinions on that, let me know. But as always, be sure to like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And on the next episode, it will be the fallout from SummerSlam, where The Rock made his return to confront Roman Reigns, and that will happen on our next episode of SmackDown.